All right, we're back on the morning show, Wise Guy Wednesday this morning, 6:49, and we're having a little thrill with dill this morning, and it involves electricity. Wise Guy Matt Sullen is here. Should we be explained? Should we be scared of this?
And pickles?
Yeah.
Seem like a good
Maybe. Now, this is one of those things that you should never, ever try at home.
Okay.
Never be tempted, because this is one of these things that requires at least 20 years of college education to get right.
Okay, well, you have the PhD.
That's right. And it's nice to be back, by the way. I've been on jury duty for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, when
doing your part for
my civic duty, exactly right. So in weeks past, we talked about light, and a few weeks ago, we talked about electricity also. And since, you know, summer's coming up and people are having picnics, there should be a catch in there with food. Okay, so here, this combines all of those things. So we're going to have
like food on the morning show, so.
Yes, well, after you cook this pickle, you may not want to eat it, but that'll be up to you.
All right.
That's good now.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pass electrical current through a dill pickle.
Okay.
All right, now, you'll see why in a moment, because it's actually going to do something pretty surprising. But the reason you can pass current through something is that current tends to flow quite well in things which have a lot of salty water in them, and pickles have a lot of salty water in them. Salt ionizes easily, and that helps to conduct electricity. So if you have a glass of water and if you put a bunch of salt in it, you can get electricity to flow really quite easily through that water.
But you wouldn't think that the dill pickle would be a good conductor.
You wouldn't think so, but you're about to see that it's actually pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is I've rigged up this setup with some old forks and some old pieces of wood, and so the idea is that you need to make an electrical connection from one side of the pickle to the other side.
Okay, and
so that's what the forks are for. And then we have our big transformer here that we're going to use to get the current to be a high enough voltage that this thing is going to work for us.
This isn't something you could try at home, right? Because who has one of these little gizmo
gadgets
at home?
Exactly right. Okay, so now one of these clips goes on each side, so now we don't want to touch the forks anymore. We just want to kind of watch it. So I'm going to turn this on here, but if we could dim the lights a little bit, that'll be easier for us to see what's going to happen with the pickle. So flip them all down. Okay. Now we're going to crank this up. And if you zoom in on that...
It's juicing.
Oh, my goodness.
It's steaming.
Should we be standing this close?
Whoa!
I feel like I need to take a step back.
See that? So it actually starts to glow. Isn't that the coolest thing?
It's going to burst into flames?
I know. Does it ever explode?
So I'm going to turn that off, because what happens is it gets really smelly. And now I can explain what happened here. Okay, so let me disconnect this death machine. There we go. Okay. Now you'll notice it's still smoldering. See that? Right? And this thing, if you leave that on for a while, it gets hot and it gets stinky. And you see little burn marks where the forks are stuck into it. So it is kind of stinky. Okay, but I apologize. And you guys have to live with this. I can go home. But anyways, so what happens is you pass electricity through this. And I remember a few weeks ago we talked about fluorescent lights, didn't we? We had the neon light and we had the mercury vapor little lamp and stuff like that. And we said that if you pass electricity through there, you excite the atoms, and the atoms give off light in a very characteristic way. And we even had the little spectrum thing, and we could see the spectral lines. The same thing really happens here in a way. Sodium has a very distinct emission spectra when you pass electricity through it, or when you excite those atoms, and it gives off light that's kind of orange and yellow, which is what you sort of saw here. Which you saw here. So it's kind of like well, I would say sort of a poor man's neon light, but of course it's not neon, it's sodium.
What's the point of doing that? Just to...
The point of doing this is that it says really cool.
And that it was.
The boy thing.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Where else could you pass electricity to a pickle and get a stink and light and, you know. So it's really not useful for anything other than the, gee, that stinks, but that was cool.
And a better understanding of how sodium helps in conducting electricity.
That's right. So salt conducts very well. And when we come back in a little while, we're going to talk about the summer solstice, which just happened. Changing topics a little bit.
Yep. All right. It's Wise Guy Matt Sullen. He's back at 7:25. In the meantime, it is 6:53.